and welcome to We Women Want. This is our weekly show where we discuss issues related to women, from work-life balance, from domestic violence, from health issues, to fashion, to fads, to lifestyle, everything. We celebrate the winners and we try and find solutions for issues that I think if an issue concerns a woman, it concerns the whole family really. But today actually we are going to be talking about women in the workforce. Now more and more women are giving financial independence a lot of priority, sometimes even more than marriage. They want to be financially independent. Women have now very much a very strong part of the workforce. The offices are also been made to be gender sensitive. There is maternity leave, there are night shifts which have been allowed for women. Institutional frameworks have to be put in place. Women are told to play a larger role in grievances and advisory committees. They have to have a certain amount of representation. So on paper, all these things are there, but how does that translate on the ground? For instance, because of the fact that women have to be given, whether even menstruation leave, maternity leave, a lot of firms, employers are telling me, we kind of hesitate sometimes to hire women because, you have to be a little more sensitive, a little more, they get more leaves, more perks. This is the attitude. So things that are supposed to help us actually in the end also turn and rebound on us. So how do we negotiate this? That is something I'm going to be talking about with my panel today. Joining me is Anuradha Das Mathur. She is the founder and dean at the Vedika Scholars Program for Women. I have Talish Ray, she's an advocate, and Vishakha Gupta, who's a partner at Adios Law. Anuradha, I'll begin with you first because a little bit about your school or college rather is very interesting, because what she does is you've got graduates and you train them before they go into the workforce. And I always tell everybody about your hashtag don't quit, because as what Anuradha says, it's not just to get women to work, but they should also stay at the workplace. Don't be the first to quit if there's a crisis in the family or there is some issue. You tell us first about your ideology.
Yeah, so I think, you started out with saying that, Priya, and by the way, thank you for having me on the show. That I think it's very interesting that women are actually becoming very, very conscious of the importance of financial independence. And I think there are messages coming at us from everywhere. And for young women, especially from their mothers, saying financial independence is core to your life and a life of dignity. And our college was started based on the fact that there is education. It's meant to empower you, but we are finding that women are more educated and less employed. So what was going on? And what we discovered was that things that allow us to stay in the workforce are things that are not taught, or just by way of conditioning and patriarchy are things that women are not encouraged to do. Globally, women were being brought into leadership roles by training once they were identified as HiPOT. We said, why do I have to wait till 38 or 40? I haven't become a statistic that has dropped out. So we've actually taken all of that stuff. And this is like an alternate to an MBA. So the curriculum is an MBA program, but we also supplement it with everything that women need to be in the workforce to stay and succeed. So that's really what Vedika does. And we've done 10 years. Our retention rate is
10 years, huh?
And retention rate of our scholars in the workforce is almost 95%. So I think something's working.
Right. Amazing. That is really good. But Talish, in terms of, we've all said, okay, let's make the workforce more accessible and friendly to women, whether it's harassment committees, we've got all the things in place. But when it comes to actual implementation, that's where the gap comes.
So I think I want to first address this bit, which is the, the big question mark in the room, which a lot of people come in and talk about, is that we have to provide so much more if it's a woman employee. Why should we have women at the workforce? And as a practitioner, that is one thing that I've seen across board with clients and others, is that women are essentially employed because you have someone who is A, willing to give loyalty, should they be treated right, and B, let's not forget that gender pay parity is not a reality. So here you have it, you have a person, an employee or a consultant who is willing to work and give 110%, commit themselves and come at 2/3 the cost. That's typically the gender pay gap. And that is why women are repeatedly brought into the workplace. So that attempt to retain them as well, there's a lot of loyalty, because at the end of it, as a working parent as well, I often tell my clients, just don't take up more of my time, because a minute of my time is not just a minute of my time, it's a minute of my time plus a minute of each of my child's time. So therefore, it's 3 minutes, and that value add that I bring on board because I have other roles. But to come back to what you were saying about, how much of it is being implemented, it is a step in the right way. It's not 100% implementation, but there are processes, there are larger companies that are leading in larger organizations, including the government of India, that is trying to put in a mechanism in place, which is a huge step forward from the time when I joined the workforce, which was about 20 years back. I was very different then, if you remember. Right.
No, so things are improving, Vishaka, but there is also that mindset that because we have to do so much more for the women and also be sensitive, kind of you can't yell at a woman the way you would yell at a guy. It's a two-edged this thing. The woman complains, there is a committee. So a lot of people privately, they say all these politically correct things. They say these are the reasons why we are a little hesitant to hire women than men. Does that kind of mindset affect also?
Yes, I think that sort of restricts the kind of employment that women have access to. Definitely, and more so, I think the hesitancy then comes from the women itself, because they have to portray themselves out to be able to sort of compete with with their other colleagues, that they are not better, but actually at the same wavelength and at the same bandwidth as being able to complete the work. So the expectations are a little bit more from a woman that, okay, will she be able to do it? She anyway is burdened with a lot of biological issues as well as other societal pressures. So I think a lot of women are facing that pressure, including the pressure of actually doing the work. Correct. So
Yeah, so this, this is how do you tell your girls, Radhi, that, there will be times where, a guy may say, oh, tane bhi aate hain, oh, you're a girl, I can't say this to you. Or night shift, okay, on paper you're allowed on night shift, but, I have to put in a whole lot of more precautions in place because you're a woman. So,
I mean, I really, I'm listening to our other panelists also, and I actually see the world quite differently. And I think part of it is impacted by the fact that I actually work with a very young workforce. So I think the way we think about the world, 20 years, 30 years in the workforce, what things were, what happens to our peers, versus how younger women are seeing themselves at work and their workplaces is actually quite different. So that's number one. But I wanted to respond to, this whole thing about my time being away from my children. And there's something there that I feel is so structurally flawed. And we keep feeding that flawed structure. I feel like the women at work and the solution for more women at work is not going to happen till such time that the care economy structurally gets addressed, which means that other than X number of days or weeks around the time that a child is born, caregiving has to be much more equally shared in society, in families, and between men and women. Right. Until we actually acknowledge that, as women, as families, as a society, this problem is not going to go away. And you've alluded to policies, Priya, and I want to just mention one fact around this 26-week maternity that was, promised in India. Technically very progressive, but countries where this works, the burden of that 26 weeks of leave is shared between the employer, the government, and an insurer. In India, it's expected from the employer. Big companies, no problem. Where is employment being generated in India? It's in the middle, in mid-sized companies and small companies. Genuinely, affordability is a problem. You mentioned sensitivity. I have no problem being sensitive to women. I mean, I'm a woman, 90% of my workforce is women. But when it becomes about, if hypothetically I had 60% of my workforce was women who were technically ready or potentials for maternity, I would have to provide for 1.5 times my workforce if everybody is going to be away for 6 months. So I think there is a fundamental economics somewhere there that we have to think about harder than saying, people want to shy away from it. So I think there's a solution there, and this is a societal public-private partnership issue. It's not meant to be handled by every employer.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there. But I think that the policy itself is resulting in some backlash, because I know statistically some anecdotal surveys, etc., that interview calls for women have gone down by 25% Women are applying for jobs, but interview calls have dropped almost 25% since the amendment in 2017.
Yeah, so this is actually what prompted this conversation, because the friends of mine, they said we actually want to give priority to women. They were hiring more women. They, the focus on the workforce was women, but there are small startups, so they came with exactly this problem that we can't afford. At the end of the day, while we want to empower women, we also have to look out for ourselves. So we can't afford this, all the maternity leave, because all the expenses come on the employer. There is also, in the office strife, where, for instance, we also have committees, the Vishaka committees, etc., where there is sexual harassment, but the girl always gets the benefit of the doubt. So a lot of men are complaining that they are using this to settle scores. So there are a lot of these other issues which one has to navigate, Talish.
So yeah, to go in with when we look at the history of women at the workforce and paid workforce, that is, I just want to clarify, women have always worked. It is
Yes.
just that post World War II that women came out in the workforce, which was paid workforce. In the paid workforce, yes, there is always the first time that these imbalances are worked out. And I do agree that there's a lot of structural imbalance. There's structural imbalance where families are concerned. There's structural imbalances where the economy is concerned. There's structural imbalances societally. And all of these, therefore, lend the lean-in model to be slightly defective in that sense. But having said that, I do believe that when any of these come in, there is always that backlash. So let's look at, when we look at the workforce as well, the labor movement instead. In and around the beginning of the 20th century, when labor demanded 888, the call came in for 8 hours of rest and 8 hours of work and 8 hours of whatever you be. For a good 2.5, 3 decades the world over, the industrialized world over, there was so much of pushback. And yes, those are natural corrections that start to take place. A lot more is needed from other players and stakeholders, because it is not just the responsibility of the employer or the employee. It is generally a responsibility as a whole, because if you want to see the economy progress, you cannot have 50% of the economy being educated. And in India, a lot of it is public education, so public taxpayer money, and then having them in a place where they're defeated structurally. So why are you getting them ready if structurally you can't support them? And that's the overall view that needs to be taken by policymakers. It's not just you pass a policy, it will be implemented, or looking at the courts to ensure that the compliances are taking place, or other regulatory bodies that are there. It has to be an overall responsibility. It has to be something very urgently dealt with, to look at it holistically, for sure.
Yeah, and as you know, answers are there. There are solutions if only, the government steps in and not just makes policies on paper. But, Vishaka, a lot of young girls today don't want the discrimination. They say, we'll do, apart from maternity leave, which is, of course, you can't, but things like night shifts. They say, we definitely will take it up and we don't mind. We can drive home alone, don't worry. There is a lot of that also happening in today's kids.
I think, our mindset definitely is very different from the earlier generation. We're very well equipped in terms of technology, especially. Technology is a big aid for us. We know how to work it. We know how to use it to our benefit. We're also now training ourselves, I would say, into self-protection. We're not waiting for someone else to rescue us. We're very open to, and I think a larger section of my generation and women are, and even younger girls, than I'm in my 30s now, but even younger, they're more concerned about keeping themselves stronger health-wise, and applying it to them protecting themselves. They don't want to wait, for a Prince Charming to come and save them.
Yeah.
But they are their own saviors. So all we are looking for is an opportunity to be standing where the rest of the world is standing. And then if we're standing at the same place is where we will start walking. And now if we have to struggle to reach that also is where we want support, not subsequent, to from that line.
It's the whole
Very well
equity.
put, huh?
Yeah, it's the whole equity and equality, because I think we need both to get started. But I just wanted to come in.
I'll go for a quick break and then I'm going to come back to Radhi, but just a quick break. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to We Women Want. This week we are focusing on women in the workforce. And Radhi, you wanted to come in on something?
Yeah, no, I wanted to say that one is that you're telling employers, you're putting policies in place which are all focused on women. And I think if you have to incentivize the system, there are many places where, and I'm not even saying maternity and paternity, people are talking about family leave. And Priya, if you just look at demographics around the world, women are marrying late. Many women are not having children. People are having one kid. There are single parent homes. So this belief that it has to be maternity or it has to be paternity, all of these are becoming increasingly not a fit for the way we want to talk about life. And just a quick example, I think when Barack Obama was president, he said, let's take the conversation away from working women and started to talk about working families. And that family unit doesn't need to be one man, one woman, and two kids. That family unit could be a mother and daughter. It could be a father and son. It could be a father and daughter. Like, I think systemically we are changing so much that we have to think about these things as family leave or a nuclear unit, how it's going to take care of its caregiving. We keep talking about childcare. There's elder care. There is sickness leave. I mean, you're tending to, a lot more.
To come in there, actually, when I think about it, when you look around, family as a unit itself has undergone so many shifts. So if you look at everything else, the way we commute, the way we live, where we live, what we eat, has undergone a paradigm shift. And yet, when we look at family, we look at it as this heteronormative, extended unit. And I'm always a little bit disappointed when it comes down to putting the pressure on those that really require, as Vishaka said, about the equity part of it. There is a generation that's coming in, and to give credit, I mean, my generation, for example, we've stood on the shoulders of some very, very broad shoulders of women who've had to battle it out. We didn't need to battle those battles. But at the same time, we now need to understand that the battlefield has changed. And the younger generation knows it because they are on much more shifty grounds. So, for example, for Delhi, I mean, schools go online the moment there is an AQI spike that comes in. It's a part of the GARP system. What happens to the family unit then? Because there is an entire unit that's functioning to be economically productive to the state. And I think that rethink is where we'd be able to structurally move away from things that have been around from, I don't know, centuries. And the understanding continues to be the same. So that's the challenge that I see every day.
But, also the attitudes at work, I spoke about now, of course, there are these sexual harassment committees, there are grievance committees, but as you said, women are also now maybe, fighting their own battles also. And it's, as you said, give as good as you get, it's maybe there is maternity leave, there's menstruation leave. Women may not take that because they also want to, not be singled out. And
Absolutely. I think it also comes down to self-awareness as well as trying to put yourself in control. The policies are they're coming up. I would not say they're all in place, and there needs to be an overhaul, as we were discussing. But there are some, like, it's a lot of progressive workplaces are offering maternity menstruation leave. They are offering that, but does everybody need it? Is a question that you have to ask yourself. I don't need it personally. I'm okay with being in office and being able to function through that. But there are others who need it. So the playground has to be made available. The strategies and the policies have to be that yes, they're available if you need it. We can't have them to be overworked, and we can't have them being taken advantage of.
correct.
And that will come from conversation. That will come from the fact that as a woman, I don't feel that because I have been sidelined for so long that I need to take this, or that, I didn't have this before. Now that I have it, I might as well use it to do something else.
Correct.
So that sort of space has to be available, that if there is menstrual leave available, I use it for that. And plus, like we were discussing, that if there is a child care leave available or a family care leave available, I use that for that purpose. I don't mix those two ideas and come back where the conversation shifts to, she's taken this leave, but she's using it for her own personal issues.
Right.
I just, because this is such a, again, because I work with very young women, and I think we have to be very conscious. Not for a moment am I saying that we don't need lots of affirmative action, things that deliver equity to a very skewed system so far. But I also feel like because of the younger generation that's coming in with a very different view of the world, we have to be quite conscious about what applies to everybody in the workplace. So my view is that, let's say menstruation is a monthly phenomenon, happens to large parts of the workforce, but migraines are a recurring problem as well. So, and frankly, just menstruation isn't a disease, right? For many people, it's run of the mill. For some people, it's a problem. And I think it should then get focused as something that is a challenge for you, and for someone it's a migraine, for someone it's menstruation, for someone it could be something else.
Correct.
Flexibility, remote working, these I think need to become available parameters for everybody in the workforce. I don't think, and because the moment we make it about women, then we feed into the fact that बाकी सारा काम औरतों को करना है, घर चलाना है, खाना पकाना है, बच्चों को देखना है, बीमारों को देखना है. So I think we have to hit at that belief system all the time. And one other very quick thing, if you talk to young women and ask them to make policies, they're the future. It's us who keep sitting and making policies for our past experiences. You ask young women what they want, what their affirmative or equity delivering framework will say. One girl told me once, why is the diaper changing station in the women's loo?
Yeah. Yeah, or as for that matter, if you go to an airport, if you get in there, you'll see there are so many places where you see how many men get through the security part of it. Yeah, they get through faster because there are multiple lanes for them, but for women and children. And I actually have to pitch in here because this has been a bit of a bugbear with me, and I must put it out here. Where stakeholder consultations are concerned, it is terribly disappointing the world over, but something that cannot get my head around is the fact that we have a ministry for women and child together. At some place, you see, it is something that others me as in the category of children. And I think that if that fundamental application of thought is applied to how things are structured, how it might just make a world of difference. And that's where I'm coming in from, because I'm glad you picked that up about, who are the stakeholders that are deciding the policy. I think that becomes an important question because we now have a demographic of women across generations. And if one is to take the definition in terms of sociology, right now itself, there's 3 generations that are sitting.
So let's ask you as a stakeholder, if you were to make policy for women in the workplace, in terms of, say, maternity leaves, in terms of night shifts, in terms of the way someone talks to you, in terms of, a lot of harassment, what you would constitute sexual harassment, up to a point. Not the physical, but the way, if the guy is talking the same way to you as he's talking to a woman, to a male colleague, would that make a difference?
Not at all. I think that's where we see the difference, that the conversation shifts, the word language, the usage shifts from how a male colleague is being spoken to and how a woman is being spoken to. And I think if we talk about policy changes, I think one of the first and foremost ones that we would need from my generation would be mentorship across fields, and mentorship in terms of just conversations. I'm at the moment in this panel, I've seen such various thought processes that I would not be subjected to, or I would not come across, because I don't know the manner in which to access it. And the same goes for not only in the professional field, but also in the field, in my personal life, in my social life as well. So the one major overhaul, and I think the concept of mentorship needs to change and needs to come back. Sexual harassment would eventually be answered through that, because if I know that the person and the person who's speaking to me knows that these conversations are for her benefit or for his benefit, and they are not to be construed, the languages, the words used are not to be taken in any other way except for, for the purpose that they are being intended to. Because the conversation is so limited. Because you're only talking to me if you're either giving me work, or if you're a male colleague when we're working together, or any other one. You don't take offense in your social settings, right? You do not think that this is sexual harassment unless it actually is, when you know it yourselves. So that sort of gap needs to be closed first and foremost.
Yeah, because see, for instance, I'm in a media company, so I'm also, some of the complaints that come in for sexual harassment could be when a male senior is calling, because we are a 24-hour news channel, so some news breaks at night. So if you're calling a woman junior at 11:30 at night to tell her about the story that she has to follow the next day, this is being construed as harassment. So he's saying, मैं इसको दूंगा ही नहीं काम, I'll just call up the guy, not her. So these are the little gray areas.
And Priya, there's a part of me, while I can be very enraged and outraged by how much nonsense goes on, there's a part of me that feels very empathetic towards men who are also trying to make sense of this, right? There are enough and more well-intentioned men who'd like to do the right thing. I have an older colleague who always asks me, when let's say they're going out for a meeting and there's a young woman, he'll call me and say, Anuradha, shall I drop her? Should I offer to drop her? Like, what will? So I sometimes tell him, I said, there's a generational issue and there's a gendered issue. I said, sometimes I don't know what will be okay with a young woman. So one of the things is best to ask, are you okay with this? Because all of us are trying to find our way around a very rapidly transitioning situation.
So
Very
actually,
well said,
when you're coming in there, because Anuradha has picked it up, Priya, sorry, if you have a question, please go ahead.
We're just out of time, but quickly come in.
Yeah. So when we talk about women, I think I also would like to focus on those that choose the gender of women. And I think that subcategory of people who may biologically be either intersex or have chosen the gender of women as their identity, I would like to speak for them. I think that is the subcategory that really gets forgotten in all of this. And I think there is a greater push that we see that's coming out. There have been acts about this. And I think as women, as people who have gone through, and anyone who's subaltern in that sense, who has gone through and has fought some ceiling, it also becomes our responsibility to understand that they too require so much from us. Because they are also navigating the workplace and navigating it loudly, confidently, and often with a society that has no understanding of those fundamental choices.
No, fair enough. Those are issues that actually we should be discussing also, but we're totally out of time. So next show. But for now, thank you all for this really, really, I think, enlightening and a very interesting conversation. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.